Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cindy Woody back with another TExES 268 test prep video, this time for Domain 5. Let's just jump right in. Domain 5 is all about strategic operations. The subtitle for this one in the TExES Principal Certification Standards is Alignment and Resource Allocation. So look at the list here of the things that Domain 5 covers. It's all about making sure that your daily work aligns with the vision and the law. It's all about campus needs assessments, the systems you have in place, being purposeful with the way you use your resources, making sure everybody knows their job, that the school keeps running every day, and that the kids are safe and the teachers are safe, everybody's in compliance, and that discipline and attendance and budget, all of those things are all done in a legal way. There's two competencies in Domain 5. For 9, we use the image or the icon of chess pieces, and it's all about knowing where to move the pieces around on the board and keeping everything in alignment. The entry-level principal knows how to collaboratively determine goals and implement strategies aligned with the school vision that support teacher effectiveness and positive student outcomes. So this may sound a little bit like Domain 1, where we talked about that you're not the Lone Ranger, that you're working together with the stakeholder group to build the shared vision, and that we have goals aligned with that, and that everything is about teaching and learning and student outcomes. The only difference is in Domain 5, it's about keeping that work alive. It's the daily doing of it. So when you go across on the other side, Competency 10, I call house rules. Competency 10 is the how part. The entry-level principal knows how to provide administrative leadership through resource management, policy implementation, and coordination of school operations and programs to ensure a safe learning environment. And once again, we drill down to that bottom line. It's all about the school culture and the safe learning environment. The difference is this time is just the technical pieces of how you go about doing this on a daily basis. So I have the icon here of a chess piece. For Competency 9, we're talking about strategic alignment. If you've ever played chess, you know that there's a lot going on the board, and you got to keep up with what's going on at all time and maintain your goal, protecting your king and trying to win the game. So I have purpled out the priority standards so that we can look at number 4. This descriptor says implements appropriate management techniques and group processes to define roles, assign functions, delegate authority, and determine accountability for campus goal attainment. So this is a lot like Domain 3 that we just covered. Domain 3 covers the human resource part, managing the people. The difference is this is about the appropriate management techniques and group processes that keep all this work going forward. Assigning things, defining things, delegating authority, anything related with daily operations. So look at these two guys playing chess in the park. They definitely are working on their strategic operations and their alignment of their goal, which is to win the game with the pieces that they have left on the board. So we have 3 priority standards for Competency 9. A is about the campus needs assessment. So hopefully by this point in your career, you've had an opportunity to be at least somewhat a part of the campus needs assessment process. So you'll see that on a lot of questions. This is a priority standard where they have done some type of data gathering. Remember in Domain 1, we spent a lot of time working with stakeholders and getting everybody on the bus and then getting that roadmap. You may remember those images. So this time the image is the chess game. The game is going on. We're analyzing what we said we needed, and we're trying to determine if we've set the right goals and if we can keep that moving forward so that we're meeting our strategies. And typically the strategies are going to be something about improving teacher effectiveness. On B, we're talking about the systems for monitoring and adjusting goals. So if you've been studying for your constructed response items, you'll also see alignment here with the constructed response item 4. So that school culture piece, all about the goals and keeping that culture aligned with the goals. So when you have constructive response 4, you've probably seen that in the other videos, that they give you a whole bunch of things that are going wrong. You have parent complaints, you've got superintendent notes, you may have notes from the previous principal, and you're the new principal, just walked in the door, and student discipline is off, or attendance is terrible, or there's just nobody's making progress. And so you're going to be the person in charge of setting those systems up for monitoring and adjusting the goals as we go. So that's what this piece is. And again, look at B. It says establishes structures that outline and track the progress using multiple data points and makes adjustments as needed to improve teacher effectiveness and student outcomes. Right back to square one again. And then C is about aligning your resources. And I see some commas here. Allocates resources effectively, examples given, staff time, master schedule, dollars, and tools. And so you may have seen some of these things in domain 3 or domain 4. So the staff time is things like, you remember the question we had, I believe it was in domain 3, where the principal was looking at the leadership team and saying, well, I've got everybody working on other things and I'm the only person working on instructional leadership. Maybe we need to change that. That's that staff time example. So you will expect to see some list of how people are spending their time. Master schedule is very similar. So the master schedule should be aligned in your examples. If you see a question on a master schedule, look for a misalignment where you maybe have small classes. Maybe the advanced classes have a smaller number of students in them, or maybe the best teachers, teacher of the year, or whatever, we've got them paired with students who aren't struggling at all. And maybe, anyway, we could go on and on about that. But master schedule is one you can expect. Dollars and tools we'll talk about in a minute. And we're back down again, aligning with school objectives and goals and working to access additional resources as needed to support learning. And then we get to competency 10. Did you ever play Monopoly with your brother or sister when you were a kid? And you have all those resources, Monopoly money and property and hotels. You remember that? The dice, you'd roll the dice, but you still had to follow the rules. So that's what resource allocation is all about. On competency 10, we have 4 that are priority standards and 4 that are not. There's a lot of standards on this one, aren't there? So I use the fuzzy purple arrows. We're going to kind of breeze through the white ones real quick just to take a look at these. Remember, these will not be tested extensively on the test, and I would say several of these are embedded already in other domains. So the first one is about the physical plant. You may not have been familiar with that phrase before. Physical plant just means that you have strategies to make sure the air works, the heat works, the lights stay on, the water runs, the buses come and go on time, that all the equipment in the building works. You got those wet floor signs. So don't expect a separate question on that unless it's embedded in some type of safety problem. E is about technology, and as we talked about other times when technology has popped up, you will not be tested over specific technologies. I would expect technology to show up in a question about fairness and equity, or maybe shared vision about whether or not we need to replace the laptops or whatever. Facilitates the effective coordination. If you read this, it's almost word for word as a descriptor from domain 2. Facilitates the effective coordination of campus curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular programs in relation to other school district programs to fulfill the academic, grade appropriate, and social needs of students. So what's different here is you may see questions where you're trying to figure out if the program is still working correctly and if it's still meeting the needs and if it's doing its daily thing because you're facilitating the effective coordination of it. And then G is all about collaborating with district staff. So you're in the district staff office now to ensure the understanding and implementation of district policies and advocates for the needs of students and staff. So this is be the one like where we're combining 2 schools and you need to advocate for your school with the superintendent to make sure that you get the teachers and the supplies or whatever that you need for your school. And then we move to competency 10. I love this image too. That's old King Hezekiah. And he had all the resources, all the gold and the treasures and everything. And some friends came to visit from another country. And without asking a lot of questions, he just let them walk all in. He was so proud. He was just so proud. And he just showed them all around and showed them every single thing. And then they came back later and stole him blind. So I don't know. For some reason, that was a funny image for me when I was looking for one to fit uh, the descriptors here. So we have safety and crisis management. So obviously he had no crisis management mindset. But it says applies strategies for ensuring the safety of students and personnel and for addressing emergencies and security concerns, including developing and implementing a crisis plan. So I want to say a couple of things about that. Number one is you can expect, this is a priority standard, you can expect several questions on safety, security, emergencies, crisis planning. And number two, if you have personally been involved in one of those at your school, when you go to take this test, you're just going to need to set that aside and you're just going to need to take this test just like you were reading old Reader's Digest. So you're just getting through this question, getting through all the questions related to it. You're just trying to stay focused. Remember the professional, diplomatic personality of the principal. You're going to keep that focus as you take this test. Deep breath, you'll be okay. Smile and look up. So let's look at what it says. The difference here, or maybe not even the difference, this is the only place that I can remember in the standards that this is directly addressed. Applies strategies for ensuring the safety of students and personnel and for addressing emergencies and security concerns, including developing and implementing a crisis plan. So they've spelled out specifically a crisis plan. So you may want to just look at the Texas School Safety Center if you are uncomfortable with how crisis planning works. The Texas School Safety Center has lots of kind of in a nutshell type resources that you can glance over if you just want to refresh your memories on that. Remember, you're not the Lone Ranger, so a crisis plan would be collaboratively developed. And then the kinds of questions I would expect for you to see is there might be a cluster question talking about some type of emergency. Let's say there was a big fight at your school, as students got off the bus, students were hurt, and maybe a staff member was injured, and now they're asking you questions about it. So note on the questions the entry point. You will probably have a what should you do at this moment question. And remember that student safety is the first priority, student and staff safety. So you want to make sure that if the question is during the crisis or immediately following the crisis, you're you're setting aside everything except following the crisis plan and checking on students, protecting students, making sure students are okay. After the crisis, you would be expected to do some sort of after action review. So it's an AAR. So look for a group of people who are taking the situation, they're debriefing over what happened, and they're trying to come up with ways to prevent this from happening in the future. So those are the two types of questions I would expect to see. Daily operations is also a bold print one, so that means it's going to be um, represented more than once on the test. And let's look at why it might be. Applies local, state, and federal laws and policies to support sound decisions while considering implications related to all school operations and programs. Example given: student services, food services, health services, and transportation. So student services is typically assisting students in some form or fashion when they've had some type of issue. It could be a discipline issue. It could be a new student to the district. It could be special needs. Food services, health services, transportation, But when you throw in that all the local, state, and federal laws and policies, that makes it a little bit tougher, doesn't it? So let me just say a couple of things. Discipline policies you're probably familiar with. So anything to do with student discipline is going to be very carefully handled in the questions. They're not probably going to ask you things about paddling students or any of those kinds of issues like that. It's going to be more about protecting a student's rights to make sure that you've reviewed the situation and you really understand. So there's going to be a seek to understand thing in there. And then transportation is one that you should know. Transportation laws follow the same laws that you have to follow when you drive your car. So if there's anything going on transportation, there's extra laws about transporting students. And you cannot transport students without permission and on school transportation that's approved. Can't drive kids around in your car, even if somebody in your district does that. You as the principal cannot take students home. So you're not looking for any of those kinds of things. You're just going to follow the rules. And you'll see the same thing when we get to all the special ed rules. Everything happens in the ARD. You're not going to be making rules for students based on what the parent asked for or what the teacher or the student needs. It goes through the ARD. Managing the budget. So this one's bold print. Don't panic if you've never managed a budget. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Collaboratively plans and effectively manages the campus budget within state law and district policies to promote sound financial management in relation to accounts, bidding, purchasing, and grants. I seriously doubt that you would have accounts, bidding, purchasing, and grants questions on there, but let me just give you one quick tip. All of those follow formal processes. So you don't just make up your own accounts. You don't just put things out for bid. You don't just purchase things that aren't allowable. You don't go out and seek grants on your own. All of those would be questions related to working with district leaders, following the grant rules, following legal rules about bidding and purchasing. Um, you'll be okay. Discipline, attendance, laws, and policies. It's kind of funny to me that H is just stuck down here as one descriptor in Domain 5 out of all the things that are listed. Because how much time have you seen assistant principals tasked with working on discipline and attendance? For some people, is 100% of their time. But here it is, way down at the bottom, next to the last competency of the whole set of standards. H. Implement strategies for student discipline and attendance in a manner that ensures student safety and consistency and that legal requirements are met. Example given, due process and SPED requirements. So due process has to do with when a student is removed from their classroom setting. So if you remove a student from school, they're entitled to due process. And so you want to make sure that you understood what was going on and they had a fair chance to express their side of the story before any processes were taking place and that parents were involved. And then SPED requirements, like we said, everything goes through the lens of the ARD committee. Those are just two examples. But notice that this says implement strategies for student discipline. And then it has the word consistency, student safety, consistency, legal requirements. So the types of questions I would expect for this priority standard would be that you're working with a committee or with your leadership team or parents to implement some strategies for student discipline. You want to lean towards strategies that are a couple of things. You want to look for restorative strategies and you want to look for proactive strategies. So restorative just means that when a student makes a mistake or makes a bad choice, that they're given an opportunity to understand the damage that they've caused and to repair the damage. So it's less punitive and it's more about building the student back up to be able to return to a normal relationship with the teacher and the students in the classroom. And then for the positive, some of you may have done PBIS, positive behavior, what's that? Intervention support, PBIS. Anyway, those strategies are very positive in nature, and it gives the students an opportunity to proactively avoid getting into trouble. So look for answers like that. Just know that that's the mindset of the test makers. I was going to say that we have a couple of questions like that in the practice manual that I did not include today. I want you to make sure you take time to go look at them. So a couple of pearls of wisdom for domain 5-3, in fact. So number one, campus needs drive it all. So there's a lot of data to look at on this test. It's a data-rich test. You're going to be provided with either the stated need or the inferred need visible in the evidence. So if you get stuck on a question, look again and see what's going on around you. If there's a clustered question or if it's inside the question itself, look at the answer choices and try to find where it might be, even though it may just be inferred. You can probably find the answer, even if you didn't go into the test knowing much about this topic. And then when in doubt, lean toward teachers. I like that little picture there on the left of the teachers in the center, leaning all together. This exam focuses on the principal's ability to improve teaching in order to achieve student success. So watch for that idea embedded throughout. That's not new to you, but when in doubt, choose the answer that works with teacher effectiveness. And then maintain a systems focus. So remember this order. This will help you on constructive response 4, but also on anything related to domain 5. Always you want to first understand the problem. Then you want to collaborate with others, the appropriate whoever the others are, to create a shared vision. Then there's the do it part, which is just do it includes, we'll say teaching and learning, but also like implementing a program or going through professional development, those kinds of things. Monitor the results. So that's where you're looking at the outcomes. We did a lot of that with exit tickets and those kinds of things earlier. And then repeat, which means understand the problem again. And remember, some of the problems could be negative. I mean, negative, it could be positive. There may be situations like we talked about earlier with teaching and learning where a student understands the concepts already so well that they need to have extensions of some sort to their learning. So just remember that sometimes the data can come in that you've met all the goals. And in that case, you need to work on meeting with your stakeholders, reviewing the data from the needs assessment or the survey or whatever. And you need to adjust the goals so you have the next thing to reach for. Always it's about student learning, student outcomes. So let's go. Let's do some test prep questions here from the manual. This question is for Competency 9. In your manual currently, it's number 46. And I don't know if I've told you this in the other videos. They are rewriting the test manual. I'm seeing new questions come in all the time. I think it was 20, 26 and 28 today say that they're under construction as I'm making this video. So be sure and use the manual and watch for it to change. So number 6 comes from a clustered question. If you watch the Domain 4 video, I believe it was in that one. It's from a Grow Your Own program. The principal is Miss Garman. So she has collected information from her Grow Your Own program. She's trying to build a good pool of teacher candidates and make sure that she's got them all lined up to be great teachers someday when they grow up. And she's working with her high school students. So these are juniors and seniors in her program. And she surveyed them and they came back. The answer to this question, by the way, is D. But they came back and they said in the survey, the lowest data points were related to the pairing of the teachers. So these high school kids who are basically teachers in training have reported back that sometimes they felt like the teacher they were working with didn't really want to work with them, or that some were really effective at pouring into them and helping them to grow as future teachers, and that some just really didn't even know how to use them. And they also didn't necessarily like 100% the grade assignments or age levels that they were assigned to work with. And that was some of the feedback from the survey data. So if you look at, she's trying to ensure that all participants, so these are the high school kids, benefit from their classroom placements. Ms. Garman should primarily consider D, pairing participants with highly effective teachers who have a demonstrated track record of academic success and fostering evidence and research-based learning environments. So if you look at why A is wrong, A sounds awesome. We're going to provide opportunities for these kids to go to the school board and they're going to be out there at school related events. Well, that's great. But the question says, how can you ensure they all benefit from their classroom placements? And they've told you in their survey. So going to the school board might be cool, but that's not helpful. Selecting only math and science teachers as mentors so you make sure that you get those hard to staff subjects filled. No. Who does that benefit? That benefits the district, not the students. Distributing participants, the students, equally across early childhood, upper elementary, middle, and high school classrooms. No, remember on this test, we're always looking to personalize the learning as much as we can. And the students have already said that some didn't like high school, some didn't like early childhood. So that's not directly assigned to help improve student outcomes. Number 47 on Competency 9 is Miss Fripp. In our previous video, Ms. Fripp was working with a teacher who did not want to be a co-teacher in a co-teaching partnership where we had a gen ed and a special ed teacher paired. So now she's back with this question. Ms. Fripp can determine the highest priority action is helping general ed teachers do what? So now she's looking at all the gen ed teachers. So what would you want to help your gen ed teachers understand in any situation, but especially a co-teaching situation? And the answer is D. Make the general curriculum accessible by adapting instructional practices to meet students' academic or functional needs. So another word for general curriculum is Tier 1. So in your school, you may call it Tier 1 instruction, or you may call it the general curriculum. But that is the curriculum that all students have access to. So everybody starts with Tier 1, and then we build layers from there for Tier 2 and Tier 3 in special education. So A is not correct. Adjust the criteria for determining whether a student needs an instructional accommodation. Only the ARG committee can do that. B is similar. Use frequent assessments. We're going to change the standards. No, you don't. General ed teachers don't get to do that. And that is an ARG decision. C, understand how to work with paraprofessionals to monitor each student's progress toward academic IEP goals. Well, that would be great. And I do think this would be a good distractor in this question because Who among us wouldn't love to see that relationship improve? And paras are always, often, I'll say always, but often asking for more support from their gen ed people. And so we're looking at these IEP goals, but no, that's not appropriate because even though that would be helpful, we're already supposed to be working with paras and working on academic IEP goals. This is about the highest priority action in helping gen ed teachers. So we want to make sure that the general curriculum is the highest priority, the general curriculum for all students. Okay, competency 10, sample question 11 from the manual, linked at the bottom. Misha is a first grade student with an orthopedic impairment who has received special ed services since kindergarten. After enrolling in a new school, Misha's parents contact the principal to request the special bus for her instead of allowing her to use the transportation for everyone else. Which of the following principal responses to the parent request is most appropriate? Please say that you know this is A. Only the ARD can make transportation decisions. The ARD committee is the only one that can do that for a special education student. So A, informing Misha's parents that an ARD meeting, admission, review, and dismissal, will be scheduled to immediately discuss the most appropriate transportation service. B says asking the parents to provide written documentation from a licensed physician. Well, that may be something that the ARD committee asks for later. But remember, the minute that a new student walks in the door, we have to have an admission meeting. So she's new to the school. We already have to have a meeting scheduled right away because we need to understand what her plan is and what the school needs to do for her. C, contact the transportation department for the district and get that bus they asked for. It doesn't work like that. It may obviously be a need for the student, but that's not the process that you follow. And then D, updating her IEP to reflect the specialized services required. The principal cannot do that. Remember, it may be that her IEP gets updated, but it's not. This question says, what does the principal do first? What is the most important or appropriate response? One more from Competency 10. For the past 3 years, a high school has allocated state funds for resources and staff as part of a campus-based compensatory education program. We call that Comp Ed. When planning for the next school year, the principal and campus improvement committee must keep in mind that resources from the state Comp Ed program can be redirected in which of the following circumstances. So remember, as you're making the campus improvement plan, you have to show all of these funds, including Comp Ed funds, where they're coming from, where they go, and how much is supposed to be allocated. And you have to have strategies associated with that. So what would be the only time that these could be, or would be the time that these could be redirected to somewhere else? So let's say that the answer is A. Evaluations show that the school's program is unsuccessful in achieving desired outcomes for students who are at risk of dropping out. So if you're currently using some special program like Read Faster Every Day, and the committee has realized looking at the data that Read Faster Every Day doesn't work, we can redirect those funds somewhere else. We need to get them somewhere that's working. B is not appropriate. I can tell you one thing right off the bat. The principal never has a decision that involves anything to do with $500,000. Those kinds of things are done at the school board with the superintendent. But expenditures for the school's program exceed $500,000 or exceed expenditures for the regular ed program, whichever is greater. So no, that's not a campus planning conversation. The school is enrolling students in the program who have performed satisfactorily on readiness tests and state assessments. So what they're asking here is, would the campus improvement committee need to send the money somewhere else? So like say the Read Faster Everyday programs got kids in it who already passed the STAR test. Does that mean that we can't keep funding that with Comp Ed money? No, it does not. Just because you have passed a state test or a readiness test doesn't mean that you don't still qualify for Comp Ed. And the last is the school's site-based decision-making committee fails to include an extended year program in the campus improvement plan. Well, that would be great, but you may not even have an extended year program. That's not the answer. The answer is all about, number one, achieving the desired results for student outcomes. The risk of students who are at risk of dropping out. Okay, parting words. First of all, the telescope. It's a big, big universe. So domain 5 is just 6% of the total exam. I know there may be things in this unit, in this domain, that freak you out. because you don't have any experience in this area. And you may say, well, I'm not going to take my test till I learn more about special ed, or I don't know a thing about budget, or I don't even know what comp ed is. It's okay. It's only 6% of the whole test. It'll be okay. If you miss a question, it's okay. Do not put your test off just because you feel uncertain on some of the laws or the technical aspects of Domain 5. You've got this. Okay, the Mandalorian helmet. I'm a big Mando fan. Stay strong. Dig deep to stay calm under the pressure of the exam. Stay focused on the mission of improving teaching and learning at any cost. So when you take the test, remember in the last video I talked about look up, deep breath. You've got this, you can do this, but just keep your focus on the mission of improving teaching and learning. Choose the answers that do the best job with that and try to do the most good for the most students. And then lastly, that crown. Pick that crown up. Be a king or a queen of this test. Lead it like you own it. This test measures your understanding of the entry-level principles expectations. Go ahead right now. It's only a few pieces of paper. Print the TExES rubric out. We talked about that in one of the other domains. Print TExES out to see what owning it looks like. What is it about owning it that the TExES is the principles evaluation. It's going to make statements that say what you can do if you're doing a good job. Those statements will be the answers to some of these questions. So go ahead and lead it like you own it. You're going to be a principal anyway. You might as well know what's going to be on your evaluation, right? Okay. So now I want you to meet our very best team. You've got Dr. Cindy Woody in your corner. She believes in you. And then you've got your face here. You've got you right here in the center of all this, the principal candidate. You're ready to lead. And then over here in the other corner, you've got your adventure that awaits you. Your future is waiting for you. You've already been called to this work. You felt that stirring in you. You have a purpose. There is a plan for your life. There's a plan for this degree, and this test can be a part of it. So let's know that your adventure awaits. Texas schools need you. We need you today. Whatever day you watch that video, I promise you, there are openings in the state of Texas right now for you to go and take that step into being a leader. All you need to do is get these tests passed. You've got this. Go make a difference.